Hi, my name is Madison Desmond, and in the textbook that we were reading, Inclusion Strategies for Secondary Classrooms, I chose to really look at improving the quality of expository writing. So, for struggling students, something that we need to address first is that the days where students with special learning needs being sent out of the classroom to get special instruction away from other students are gone. I remember being in school, and that was the method that instructors used with students that did have special learning needs, and they would send them out of the classroom into a different classroom to supposedly get the instruction that they needed. However, this separation no longer exists. Therefore, educators need to begin adopting practices that are inclusive of all students who might have difficulty and need more explicit instruction. The reality is that struggling learners exist in classrooms and not all receive special education services. RTI, or response to intervention, is a general education practice that corrected the problem of having two separate school systems, one for regular students and one for special students. Some students that have special education needs are not necessarily identified professionally, but everything we do in the classroom should be to help our students learn, no matter the barriers or challenges they face. Writing is difficult for many students, even the students that are labeled advanced. Teaching writing is an intricate practice that takes diligence and careful instruction. Multiple means of representation is important, as our text points out, which means we should present material and strategies in multiple different ways in order to reach all children. In the chapter Improving the Quality of Expository Writing, we get a look at many different ways to make the complex process of writing more accessible. Writing is complex because it involves different tasks such as analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. However, there are skills that we can explicitly teach our students in order to write well. So here are the 7 skills. Teach summarizing, teach text structure, writing frames, rubrics for writing, data retrieval charts, adapted evaluation matrices, and graphic organizers. So the first one is to teach summarizing. Summarization is more than a recall of information. It involves only picking out information that is essential to the meaning. So this can be done through explicit instruction in order to have students grasp the global meaning, or otherwise known as the macro structure, which is necessary in education and beyond. So these are the steps in teaching summarizing. Select a topic sentence or invent a topic sentence if necessary, by gathering all of the information that has to do with the topic and creating your own. Delete all examples and unimportant details. Delete repetitive material. Substitute a superordinate concept for a group of items or actions. Condense main ideas and combine similar main ideas. The second one is to teach text structure. This technique not only helps improve comprehension and note-taking, but is also useful to students who have ELN. So we need to establish the norm that text structures vary from subject to subject and task to task. It's a misconception to think that if you have one style of writing down, you can carry that throughout the rest of the subjects in school. So in this chart here, you can see that there are several types of text described, what the goal of that type of text is, and what keywords can be used or should be used. This will be super important in making it very clear your expectations of students, depending on, as this example shows, chronological order, cause and effect writing, problems and solution writing, compare and contrast, and that really sets out the structure for students, which makes it more accessible. The third skill is writing frames. So writing frames are used for scaffolding. So you start with a more basic one and then you can work your way up to more independent writing. The frame should consist of starter sentences, sentence modifiers, and connecting words that should be used in the type of writing you're trying to teach. So this example here is very simplistic, but you can see the general goal of it. It helps students to understand what their writing should look like. And although this is a fill-in-the-blank worksheet, this should not be just given out in class and and have students fill it out at home by themselves. This really depends on successful teacher facilitation and discussion, and allowing students to work through this template and understand why they're filling in what they're filling in. So the fourth skill is rubrics for writing. So students with ELN can use a rubric for self-regulation, self-monitoring, and self-checking. These rubrics are great in that they're really teacher-friendly and student-friendly, and they also help to avoid ambiguity. They're not only necessary for assessment, but they are a necessary teaching tool. With rubrics, students can work backwards and then also check their work, and this is also a great tool to help with peer review. So something that's important to remember is to avoid just handing out the rubric and letting them figure it out on their own, because with this, no major changes are made because students might not understand. So obviously, this here in the red box is what you want students to strive for. So as students are working on their essays, they can be looking at these criteria and checking off the boxes of whether or not they've completed that task. And that way they can have a pretty good predictor of how their essay is looking. And for peer review purposes, the peer reviewer can look at this and grade them based on this rubric. The fifth skill is data retrieval charts. So these are used for gathering information and research from multiple sources. It can be very overwhelming and difficult using many sources or sources that are lengthy. So this chart is a way to ease that stress. It creates an approachable way to begin research collecting. And just as with most of these other skills, teacher guidance is necessary for setting up the chart. So in order to set up the chart, I've highlighted in the red boxes what needs to be set up before students start beginning their own work. So on the left-hand side here, we have questions that students will need to answer in order to effectively complete the writing assignment. And up here along the top are the texts that students might be working with. And then they can fill in the chart as they go and find important information, and that kind of helps to synthesize everything, and as we were talking about with summarizing, get rid of information that might not be as necessary. So the sixth key is adapted evaluation matrices. So this helps students to improve their ability to defend and justify decisions when taking a stance for an argumentative paper. In my opinion, this is the most complex tool presented in the chapter. However, as an educator, you can simplify or rework this as necessary. So the criterion 1, criterion 2, and so on that are underlined in red here are the arguments that could be made. And so you see here, this is an example for where to establish a colony for deer. And so it says game is available, weather supports agriculture, land is arable. So all of these criteria are things that this student has put down in order to really find out which option, either location A or location B, is best. And so with that, they can score the criteria. There's some instructions at the top, but this is actually straight from the textbook. You can score the criteria and then find out which has the highest score. And then here at the bottom with the decision, then you can take your stance. Again, this will need a lot of teacher instruction to have students really get this technique down. And lastly, we have graphic organizers for expository writing. This is a great tool for teaching writing in all disciplines, not necessarily just English. It's very useful and proven effective for students with ELN, learning disabilities, and ELL students. Researchers recommend graphic organizers for students with behavioral or learning problems, late arriving immigrant students, and as I mentioned, ELLs. It's a wonderful visual tool that makes the task of producing an argument and evidence more manageable. So obviously as an educator, you can switch around this graphic organizer to best fit the assignment that you're working with, and there are even more fun ones that are in pictures of hamburgers and stuff like that, sandwiches, depending on how your class kind of responds and which grade level you're working with. In our textbook, Those Who Can Teach, Chapter 3 focuses a great deal on diversity. The text asserts that diversity will be seen in the academic abilities and achievements of your students. One of your biggest challenges as a teacher will be to provide a variety of learning experiences. This is really important as teachers, that we make sure that we give students the learning experiences and the tools that they need in order to bridge this gap among student learning and understanding performance. And using strategies for expository writing is one way that we can help our students to bridge this gap and to have every student feel that they are included and that they can really grasp the material that's being taught.